Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to English Theater Berlin International Performing Arts Center. My name is Daniel Brunet. I'm the producing artistic director here, and it's a joy to welcome so many of you to the next edition of the U.S. Embassy Literature Series. This is a very special evening, not only because tonight's event is also being put on with an eye towards International Holocaust Remembrance Day, but also because instead of reading a novel or a piece of literature, tonight we have excerpts from a piece of dramatic literature, the brand new play, Casual Baggage, by Michael Lederer. You're going to hear 4 different scenes and excerpts from this play, and it's my great pleasure right now to turn things over to Sherry Daniels, the cultural attaché from the U.S. Embassy.
Okay, I want to welcome everyone to the English Theater Berlin, with whom we're so delighted to be able to partner on this literature series. Tonight's event is very special because it's the first time, to my knowledge, that parts of this play are being read for dramatic reading. And so we can look for and see ourselves in at the beginning of this play's story. We're happy to share the exciting evening with you, and though we won't present the entire play, like I said, by Michael Lederer, the reading will give you a taste, and actually more than a taste, an introduction to a somewhat forgotten story that should be heard by more people, and you were among the first to hear it. Casual Baggage is based on the true story of a small group of Jewish refugees, less than 1,000, that were admitted to America during World War II. They were kept behind barbed wire in a camp in upstate New York until the war's end. Years later, one survivor from that group shares his story in this play. His story has a relatively happy ending, some of the product of that we will see here tonight. But it reminds us that there could have been thousands and thousands more such refugees who had made it, had my own country been more open and let more of those refugees seeking refuge in the United States in during World War II, during the Holocaust. The theme that this play describes in Casual Baggage is also coincidentally taken up by a relatively new documentary by American filmmakers Ken Burns, Sarah Botstein, and Lynn Novick, The U.S. and the Holocaust. The European premiere of that documentary, was here in Berlin, the first showing outside of the United States, and that was in September, hosted by Ambassador Gutmann in our embassy. So the U.S. and the Holocaust series will be screened soon on Germany's Arte television, public television. So I highly recommend that to all of you as well. Let me thank Daniel Brunet, the artistic director of the English Theater Berlin, who is hosting us tonight, and for his choreography of tonight's reading. And I want to thank all the actors and actresses who will be reading selected passages from the play. Let me just read you their names: Harvey Friedman, Daniel Graves, Sarai Cole, Mareile Metzner, and Alexander Schröder. Thank you so much for your time and the enthusiasm with which you took on this project. I also especially thank the playwright, Michael Lederer, for allowing us to share his story to commemorate International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And the interview that I've done with you is actually already up on our channels, on our social media channels for the embassy, and perhaps many in the audience have already witnessed that. So with that, I want to not delay any further and to begin the reading. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, U.S. Embassy. Thank you, Martina Cole, very much. Thank you, Daniel Brunet, and English Theater Berlin. I want to thank Daphne Zarai, who's here from Israeli Embassy. It's a great honor. I want to thank our actors so much: Sarai, Harvey, Daniel, Mareile, Alex, my friends and family here. Thank you very much. Holocaust Remembrance Day. Still, I can smile when I talk about this play, because this is a story not about the victims of that war. It is a story about the survivors. And as as frightening and as horrible as war is, it is also an occasion to reveal great courage, resilience, and this play is about survival. As I said, you will hear. There's one of my favorite quotes is in this play. Where there are shadows, there is also light. You will also hear in a later scene, Rada will say to Ivo, the fact you did survive means one can survive. And if one can survive, it means we will survive. And I think that that determination allows one to look at a story, even as horrible as the Holocaust, through the lens of how do we move past a chapter like that. There have been other chapters as well, even in our personal lives. We come to moments that seem so impossibly difficult, and yet somehow, by some alchemy, some magic, we find the strength to keep on going. And I think that's, I tried to write a story that celebrates that. It was not hard to, I didn't have to look very far to find a story, because I wouldn't be here right now if it was not for the story you're about to see in this play. My own father, Ivo, his sister, Mira, their parents, Otto and Ruja, my grandparents, excuse me, I called them Omama and Otata. As Cherry mentioned, they were 4 among the only 982 refugees from Europe brought to America during that war on a single ship. And then, to their surprise, they were locked behind barbed wire fencing on an old U.S. Army camp, upstate New York in Oswego, until after the war had ended. It is a very little known chapter of that war. In fact, by coincidence, Daniel Brunet grew up in Oswego County, a stone's throw from that old fort, and he did not know that story. So I was
just going to say, and it's all the more shocking because certainly World War II and particularly the Holocaust was certainly something that we were taught in school, and yet 20 minutes away in the very next municipality in the very same county, this very important piece of history transpired, and the students were left completely unaware. I had never heard about it until Michael approached me with the play about 1.5 years ago.
I think one reason may be that my country, United States, to this day may be a little bit embarrassed that so little was done, so late, and so reluctantly. So I won't talk much longer. We'll get going, but I'll say one thing about the history. Why only 982? Franklin Roosevelt understood that the top priority was defeating Hitler. And sadly, he did not want to risk support from the American people by doing too much to help the Jews. In surveys taken at that time, about half of all Americans said, that is not our problem. And the case made in this play and so many other places is it is all our problem. Not just what was happening with Jews and Germans, but Ken Burns, Cherry mentioned Ken Burns in a recent interview, it may have been in that documentary. he said this business of us versus them, there is no them. You know, we're in it together. So there is a bigger story behind this story, and I hope that I've managed to tap into that. Very last thing is by July 1944, when this one ship set sail, these people on it had already endured, had already survived by one miracle or another 5 years of war. 982 plus means there were 982 stories there. This just happens to be my father's version, and it was his luck to have a son who is a writer. Thank you.
Casual Baggage, a stage play by Michael Lederer. Jews being slaughtered in Europe by the millions. Still, many in the United States Congress and even President Roosevelt's own State Department were opposed to offering safe haven to the survivors seeking safety. To work around these obstructionists, and as a token gesture only, President Roosevelt invited fewer than 1,000 to come to the United States in July of 1944 as his so-called personal guests. They were brought from Italy to New York on a single ship, then interned behind barbed wire on an old US Army camp in Oswego, New York, until the war had ended. Their official status: US military casual baggage. Safe, if not free, that small, lucky group included the writer's family. In a full production, there will be a camera person on stage, filming some parts of scenes to be projected on a screen upstage. Also projected will be some scenes of a wider world: refugees escaping, army columns, the ship at sea, the refugee shelter in Oswego, New York with its barbed wire fence, and more. As Ivo says in the play, to love hate, a little design flaw there. And now, here are 4 short scenes from Casual Baggage. Scene 1, Ivo, Michael. At Rise, as playwright, Michael has summoned his late father Ivo to be here.
The problem, if one can call it that, is that in the end ours was a happy story. The lucky few, so few.
Where there are shadows, there's light. Where there's light, there are shadows.
How to speak of one without the other? There's your challenge. Why are you looking at me like that?
Nothing, it's just...
Just what?
Just that it's almost as if you're really here.
Don't look so surprised. It's your doing, isn't it? The writer. I did my part, giving life to you, and now what? Returning the favor?
Something like that. Keep going.
Nice. Plucked from the ether like all the rest of it. Why not? Besides, if reality was limited to the physical world, no idea would be real. No love, no memory. Just because a thing happens in a vision doesn't mean it's not real. It's a real vision. That's all. So stop staring at me like that, please. I am thy father's spirit, here for a certain term, no more, no less. Hamlet's daddy plays the thing.
Sure.
And here's a nice bonus. You get to put words in my mouth now. How long you've had to wait for that? Lucky you.
The camera person enters and starts setting up their video camera.
They never really leave us, do they? The ones we've loved. As if some part of them, the most important part even, settles in under the skin, our skin. Hitching a ride now, not to be left behind.
You're staring again, darling. Stop it. Why are you smiling?
He always called me darling, as if he'd stepped from some old European movie. I mean, his style. Even if as a boy, he'd become American. Silk ascots, ivory cigarette holders, My Fair Lady on the record player, cocktails at 6. Just different time, different world. I mean, just look at him.
Well, this is awkward.
Professor of diplomatic history, Princeton, Yale, Stanford, part-time spy. Those days, it was America versus the Soviets.
You read my diaries, haven't you? Is that what this is about? Some discretion, please. You don't have to tell them everything.
He was always jetting off to places Americans didn't go. Moscow, Warsaw, Budapest. Where you going, Daddy? Daddy has a job to do, darling. Then, one summer, out of the blue, his daydream suddenly to become another Ian Fleming. He needed my help. So paper and pen, we sat down. His idea, a modern Romeo and Juliet, both spies, this time an Israeli and a Palestinian. He began it, my love, the moonlight off the terrace, streaming past the satin curtains, shimmering on your silken hair.
Are you making fun of me?
I had to stop him, of course. Dad, people don't really talk like that anymore.
Pity, too groovy now, are they? Too far out.
Yeah, we don't really say groovy anymore.
Well, thank God for small favors.
After he sailed off, I did read his diaries, of course. Spoke to friends, saw letters, Kitty, Rada, others. I also found this.
Michael takes a large gold yellowed cardboard tag on a string in the box on the bookshelf. Evo can't see it over his shoulder. The camera person films it as the image looms.
What do you got there? Let me see that.
Michael Lederer, U.S. military, casual baggage, 1944. It was in the box with old photographs, a little fascist pin he picked up off the street in Rome when he was a boy, other mementos.
Oh, God, you've gone through everything, haven't you? Then why all the fuss, may I ask? You must know all there is to know by now.
Well, says the historian, always digging for more. Or the spy peeking around corners. To hear it in your own voice. That's why. Fill gaps, connect dots, so many questions still.
For instance.
Casual baggage?
Yes, and what about it?
All right, let's try this one. 5, 6 years old, I can just barely remember playing with a dreidel under the Christmas tree. What was that about, huh? Mom, Unitarian, German, you, Jewish, Yugoslav, young progressives, meeting on middle ground? Look, if you don't want to answer...
You'll just force me, is that it? Man with the pen. Well, go on then, ask your questions, write your answers. Your little Ouija board here, yes? Talk to me, spirits. What are you waiting for?
No, it has to come from you. Or at least through you. No, you're smiling. Why?
Me sounding like me means you sounding like me. If you can pull it off, victory mine. The goal from the beginning, I must say. Every parent's dream. Our children as reflections. Echoes, while being your own person, of course.
Sure, yeah, well, being your own person, I think I'll have the spaghetti. No, darling, you'll have the chicken. I remember. Casual baggage.
Okay, I get it. I know what's going on here. I can smell it. It's not a Ouija board. This is a chessboard. That's it, isn't it? You weren't happy with the draw, and so now you brought me back to checkmate. Get in the last word. Embarrass me in front of all your friends here. Well, bravo. Well done. It's your move.
This play took me 3 years to write. There was so much material, historical, also personal. I actually wrote over 400 pages to get to the 72 that it became. Much easier to write, for me anyway, than to take away. So the hard part was take away, take away, take away. I had to discover, it was a process of realizing that at the spine of the way I tell this story, it's like a photographic negative. It's not, the power of the story is not what happens to 982. It is what did not happen to 6 million others. it is, as you're going to hear in later scenes, my father was very accomplished. He was a professor, good schools. He did a lot, and yet at the end of his life, he died when he was 68 from cancer. He was racked with frustration that he had not done more. There's a lot of power in that. I know I have regrets. So again, looking not at what he did, but finding the drama in his sense of what he had not done. The other thing is, as I said in the interview with Cherry recently, it was such a joy to hang out with my dad as I was writing this story. There is that power of the pen. We all have memory, we all have imagination, and I could bring him back. And that was really nice. But I fell into the trap because he and we worked very hard to become good friends. And thank God we did. And much of the early writing was celebrating that. And I'm lucky that I'm longtime friends with the playwright John Guare. And John read an early draft, and he said, Michael, I knew your dad. I knew you, your relationship, Kitty, somebody else. And he said, it wasn't quite as simple and untarnished as this. Show us the skeletons. So for the sake of the drama, I then had to, because John was right, I had to dig a little more to bring those out. We'll see those. And let's wait a second. Yes, sorry. There is the relative problem, as Ivo says at the very beginning. The problem is that ours was a happy story. They survived. They made it. And there was guilt associated with that. If you're one of the lucky ones and others have been less lucky, that also sort of tortured my father. And that came to the fore. And then the other thing is the relationship between me. I was born in America. I have a little American passport and all sorts of advantages, a world away from the terror that he had known. So I became fascinated with the fact that that generation is slipping away. My father would be 93 today, and he was a child then. So it falls to us, a next generation, and my kids, the next generation already, to hold these memories. But we do it from that distance. And so I had to, navigate to find all of these sort of little crevices. Can I take one moment to talk about the origin of the play? Thank you. In Oswego, there is a wonderful little museum called the Safe Haven Holocaust Refugee Museum, run by a wonderful lady named Judy Rappaport. And it's on the site of that camp. And Judy, in 2019, they were celebrating the 75th anniversary of the refugees coming. And she asked if I could come from Berlin, and I couldn't for family reasons. And she said, that's a pity, because there is a Broadway producer who will be here, who is interested in doing a show about the Oswego refugees. So I got the address, and I sent her an email about as fast as I could type. And long story short, we signed a contract. And then, I was expected to write it very quickly, and it took 3 years, and COVID came, and so anyway, it's now in the shape that you're seeing tonight. It was for 25 characters, then it was for 15, then it was for 9, and now it's for 6, and I'm very lucky and grateful that we're able to take a first look at this smaller version. Thank you.
It's been quite a process watching Michael approach this deeply, deeply personal story. And I'm really glad you stayed with it, Michael. I mean, what a perseverance. I've had the privilege of reading probably about 20 different drafts of this piece. And it's, right, as they say, writing is rewriting. But I really admire how you've stayed with it. And it's fascinating to see it transform through genres. And I agree with you. I think this version feels very, very ready. So let us move forward to Scene 2. Ivo, Michael, player 2 is Nazi, player 1 as Ruza.
Memories are just stories we tell ourselves, right? We cherry pick, of course. Can't remember everything. Memory is a highlight reel we've archived for ourselves.
Mind's eye, as good as any, see beyond the known world.
Well, then here's your chance. My gift to you. If you could be back here now to say anything at all, extra inning.
We were so happy. My parents, my sister Mira and I, those first 10, 11 years, still in Zagreb, Yugoslavia, so happy. In the summers, we drive to the coast to swim, Dubrovnik, Opatija. In the winters, up in the mountains of Slovenia to ski.
Projected on the screen, a young boy climbs bravely toward the top of a tree.
There's a tree out my bedroom window. I would climb it. My father, gentle giant that he was, still so careful, he would always tell me to come down at once, while my mother, small, full of fire, laughter, she would urge me to keep going until I reach the top. Go on, Ivo, you can do it to the very top. Then tell me what you see from there. And there was so much to see. This was before the Nazis came, of course, when the world still had its senses, if only just.
Trees so high, from where a wider world first glimpsed will bid, come see the every this and that, which waits for thee.
What's that?
Just a little poem I wrote, that's all.
Still writing poetry, are you? Watching sunsets. Nice. Pays the bills, does it? Finally, the rent, the rest of it?
You do sound like you. Picking up where you left off?
Listen, here's an idea. Instead of all this, why don't you and I just go get...
Player 2 enters as a Nazi major colonel in the pressed black uniform of the SS.
Oh, no. Please, did you have to bring him back here? Why?
Keep going.
It's so strange. It's my generation. It's childhood. Cut short. His generation, it doesn't seem to end. It's not a clue. Wall Street brokers, skateboarding to work, wearing jeans to the opera. It was so different then. Europe, 1940s, Jewish.
The camera person moves in to film the Nazi. Slow details of that uniform, the polished boots, face, eyes, loom upstage. Terrifying.
Objects in the mirror closer than we think. Dad?
My parents didn't believe it could happen. Hitler's army's marching closer by the moment. Still, when it's peaceful outside, the sun's shining, the household's going through its rhythms, no one thinks, could it really happen here?
And you?
Me? I was 11 years old. It's the furthest thing from my mind. Besides, mountains between us and Germany and Austria, so high. I remember telling my parents that Hannibal had needed elephants to cross those mountains. As far as I knew, the Nazis didn't have any elephants, so we should be okay. It's such a wonderful thing, childhood, isn't it?
They say thunder tells us how far away the lightning is.
Wasn't long. Still, our mother did her best to reassure us.
The Nazi officer remains looking on amused, while player 1 enters as Ivo's mother, Ruza. She wears a yellow dress.
Don't worry, children. War will never happen here. We're safe. Our neighbors are friends. We look out for each other.
I couldn't understand why she was whispering it. Our father, on the other hand, wasn't so sure. I've seen men fighting over everything and over nothing, he told us. Some men just love to fight. I wanted to believe my mother. That is, until...
Until?
Do we have to do this? Do we really have to do this?
Until?
Grown-ups, just listening to radios, people moving in the streets, soldiers. I wanted to go to the movies. I got to the theater. There's a big, big sign which says, Jews not permitted. I couldn't understand what I had done wrong to be born a certain this, not that. What difference should that make?
You said something before about the lucky few.
Only because you forced me to say it. Stop this, please. I beg of you. Enough already. It's a child's work, isn't it? Sticking one's finger into the flame to see if it still burns.
Evo pulls Huckleberry Finn from the shell and looks at it fondly.
Yellow stars pinned to your chests.
Spat on my neighbors. We had known for years. That wasn't very pleasant. People I liked, I thought they liked me. Again, innocence of childhood. Soon we were told Jews with larger homes would have to offer housing to German officers in Zagreb. One morning, I was reading Huckleberry Finn, here, in my own language. Didn't speak a word of English. Sounds of boots in the hallway. I looked up. I even remember his name.
I am Major Colonel Hoch. I will be staying with you some days. I hope that will not be inconvenient.
I looked at my mother. She was wearing a yellow dress. He grinned.
Aren't you clever? Your dress yellow like the star. I suppose you think at the market they hardly notice?
Doing anything she could to push back, bless her. Then he turned, looking down at me towering, and asked,
What is your name, boy?
I told him, I am Evo.
Well, I am Evo. What a good-looking boy you are.
He began stroking my hair softly. My parents stood there frozen. Nothing they could do to stop him.
And then?
What is this now, an interrogation?
Interrogation? No. Why would you think that?
Many books, plays, movies about it all.
Oh, okay. You mean the Nazi Jew story? Yeah, sure, because they're basically all the same, right? Heard one, heard them all. Just switch John Wayne for Tom Hanks and good to go?
He said he was tired after the long trip from Vienna. Could we show him to his room, and would I then please bring him a cup of chamomile tea?
I like my tea very hot, with honey.
Is that why over the years, when you were sick, you would never drink chamomile tea?
You think a war is a big story, but it's just a bunch of small stories stitched together.
Evo places Huck Finn on the shell as the Nazi officer and Bruza vanish.
I can't imagine what it must have been
No,
like.
you can't, no. Thank God for that. Born in America. Little passport tucked away in your diaper. Princeton, New Haven, Palo Alto. Those winds at your back always. White skin, penis, top of the food chain, automatically. It's not fair, of course, but there it is.
When I was that same age, I was riding bikes, making forts, climbing trees with friends.
Such a joy to see that. You'd get in some mischief, or worse, and say to whomever, just call my father, Professor Lederer, and that was that. Little slap on the wrist. Lucky for you, no one even bothered to say, Lederer? Lederer, isn't that a Jewish name? But for a few years and a few miles.
Okay, can we stick to the subject?
I didn't realize there was a subject.
After that SS officer had left, you...
Survived. That's what happened. We survived. You being here, the proof of that.
Yeah, but that's...
What? Nothing, basta. My God, you're relentless.
What are you hiding still?
I'm not hiding a damn thing.
Michael points to Evo's books on the shelf.
Look at these books. One after another. You could write whole books about war, but the personal side of it.
What is it you're hoping to hear? How tragic it was for us. Well, I'm sorry. You'll be disappointed. Again and again. Impossibly good luck. Bullets missed. Bribes taken. Chances taken. But in the end, we made it. It's all that counts.
And so what? You felt guilty about it? Because of all the others who didn't make it? This is why you never talked to me about it? The tree has roots. I'm just digging for mine. Please help.
You don't get it. Do you? You really don't get it.
Get what?
We don't study history to understand the past. The past is over. It's gone. It's finished. It's water under the bridge. No, we study history to understand today. Prepare for tomorrow. That's why I became a historian. We did our best, my generation. Most of us, anyway. Defeat of fascism, defeat of communism in Europe, anyway. Left you a better world, didn't we? Well, didn't we? Well, now look again.
Something you said when I was little. Just because one makes one bet one day doesn't mean one doesn't need to make it again the next.
What is that, some kind of a hint? Some cryptic little wink? Not all as it should be still?
All I'm saying is, I need to know
saying
what
is think ahead, not backwards. You tell me you've made it to the 21st century. Well, bravo. Third millennium. Well done. Good for you. Trust you've all learned something from the past millennia. What did Hemingway say? Isn't it pretty to think so?
Oh, Mama and Otata, they never talked about any of
My
this.
parents couldn't put enough miles and years between themselves and what had happened. Can't you understand? One tries to forget horrors, but of course can't. Don't you remember that little poem Oma used to say when you were small might even have been the one to get you started with poetry?
Just being happy is a fine thing to do. Looking at the bright side rather than the blue. That one?
Like me, they wanted so badly to spare you the sadness and anger. And so, you know something?
What?
It's our fault. We grew up in such a bubble. It's absolutely our fault because we wanted you to do that. Swatted by fate instead of battered by it. And still, of course, despite everything, as it turned out, ours is a happy story. We made it, by God. We made it. End of story. Well, a few bumps in the road, of course. Remind me, please, what was that first poem you ever wrote? 6th grade,
Oh,
was it?
Roses are blue, violets are red. LSD taught me it's all in my head. Yeah, you mean that one?
Yeah, that's the one. Seared into my brain. Damn teacher gave you an A. So much for Palo Alto in the 60s. Only A you ever got, as far as I remember.
But at least you know this.
Now, what is that supposed to be?
Now, Michael, when you sat down to start work on this play, can you talk for just a moment about the decision to literally make your father and yourself characters in it? How you got to that point as opposed to perhaps a different way in to the story and to the history?
Sure. One is personal. I think most writers, have find their way towards stories influenced to varying degrees by their own background. In 2018, I lost somebody very close to me, not to death but to life. Still very painful. And I was trying to recover. And so as the prospect for this story began to take some shape, I thought not only did it make sense historically, intellectually, to have my father, partly because he was a historian of diplomacy. So he wasn't just an observer and someone who had lived through it. He had such a keen eye, analytical eye, so that I was blessed growing up, as he would take me to museums or to theaters or just traveling. He always had these observations. I had my own professor, Princeton, Yale, Stanford professor. But then there was the fact that that he was also my best friend. And so in order to convalesce from my own loss, I thought I will indulge in relishing this time with my father. I wasn't going to put myself in the play, but I was very lucky. There's a great dramaturg from La Jolla Playhouse, Shirley Fishman, and she was working with me in the early stages, and she is the one who suggested, why don't you put yourself in as a character? And then, again, you sort of, you stumble. The way I work, I don't storyboard. I get here, and from there I look ahead and I say, well, that's interesting, and then kind of leapfrog. And then I found this theme I mentioned earlier so interesting that as long as I was going to be on the stage with my father, how well can I understand it? I said in the interview with Cherry, I want to understand, and I try to understand. But I've spent my life, as he said, American passport and all of these advantages. So that became sort of an unexpected theme. How does, not just with this story, but in any bridge between generations. I'm going to venture to guess that the audience, we all have parents, and from one generation to the next, there are some bumps in that road, and that sort of took over part of the story. I think that answered. I hope that answered.
No, I think it did as well. Thank you very much. Scene 3. Evo, Michael, player 1, and player 2.
You're incredible, really, just incredible. Anytime I ever brought up the subject of war, you always maneuver.
What? No, I'm sorry, but you and the subject of war, oil and vinegar, you don't mix.
What are you talking
Good
about?
guys, bad guys, yes, was even the title of the first play you wrote, just 8 years old. We were still in New Haven. The good guy and the bad guy. I'll never forget it. You used Legos and Lincoln Logs for your set. Puppets, little toys for actors. You charged Mom and me a dime to see it.
What the hell does that have to do
It
anything
has
with...
everything to do with this. It's white hats, it's black hats, cavalry to the rescue. Yes, now, not always.
Projected a classic U.S.-American cowboy film, Cavalry Charging.
Or if they do come, sometimes too late. Too late, I'm sorry. I love America with all my heart, but in this way, God bless her, the country fell short. Over protecting you, over simplifying. Anytime we even touched on the subject, always the same thing. Make love, not war, like a fucking mantra. Swords into plowshares.
And what's wrong with that?
Nothing, except the problem with your whole generation is you learned of war from Vietnam, Cambodia, other side of the world. Later, it was places like Iraq, Afghanistan. The fighting never actually came to you. One bad guy puts on a white hat and you don't know what the fuck to do next. It's like trying to describe color to the blind.
Again, you're blaming me for not having to dodge bullets growing up?
Yes! I mean, no. Of course not. It's what every parent dreams of. Yet, still, those ridiculous cardboard signs.
All we were doing was trying to point the way toward the goal, the dream.
Did you have to walk barefoot in the street to save the world? Holes in your jeans, making the peace sign, saying howdy to everyone you know. Howdy, howdy, make love, not war. Howdy. My God, sight of you doing that. Even here in Manhattan, on 5th Avenue, barefoot. I'll never forget it. Even saw it in a dream once, if you could call it that, more a nightmare. Old women clutching their purses in terror.
You're talking about when it was, what, 13?
Give or take. I died 1,000 deaths to walk with you. Bad analogy, but still.
I was 13! It was the year of Woodstock, for fuck's sake! Do you remember what you gave me for my birthday that year?
Going to tell me, I'm sure.
Tiffany's table manners for teenagers! Why not? You ate hamburgers with a knife and fork! That's why not!
Yes, so my fingers wouldn't get greasy. What's wrong with that? It's the way we raised you. Clean clothes, shirts ironed, shoes polished. All those values I had learned as a boy back in Zagreb. When the world, God bless it, was still civilized.
Oh yeah, is that what you call it? Civilized. So many world wars you had to start numbering them.
Touche. Still, the idea of your greasy little rock and roll fingers.
Are we really going to relitigate this now?
Evo sits at the piano to play his own gentle tune, Peace.
Here's a little childhood something I wrote still in Zagreb. After the Germans came, I'd been taking lessons for years. I called this one Peace. Maybe I should have called it Make Love, Not War. But suddenly I didn't want Robin Hood or knights or cowboys or pirates or heroes of any kind. I just wanted peace.
Michael listens as Ivo plays his gentle childhood melody.
Was it really that bad?
No. It was that good.
Ivo slams his fist on the keyboard, the cacophony shattering the calm music he'd been playing.
Well, I must say I did not expect that.
Now you happy? This is what you wanted? Now you know. Now they know. Millions dying, starving, filled to the brim with despair. Still, even after it was known what Germany was doing, death squads to death camps, killing as an industry like building cars or making sausage. Even then, nobody wanted us. Nobody. Americans themselves would not allow even 10% of approved immigration quotas to be filled. No refugees, thank you.
Player 2 appears as Breckenridge Long.
So many crying, screaming, begging to get away from the guns, get away from the gas, while Roosevelt's own State Department even, Breckenridge Long, the swine's name, the man in charge of visas there, hated anyone who didn't look like that face in the mirror, suppressed cables about the killing of Jews, even sent a memo to all embassies and consulates.
Put every obstacle in the way, using administrative devices to postpone, then postpone again the granting of visas.
Just look at him there. The man had his head so far up his ass, it was sticking out his neck.
As a patriot, I will stand on the dock myself, if need be, to stop any filthy refugees from reaching these shores. That said, as a Christian man, it pleases me not a bit to see what is happening to the Jews in Europe. A great pity that. At the same time, we do have certain traditions here.
Certain traditions, that vile, hateful, spiteful, wooden-hearted son of a bitch, like Charles Lindbergh with his America First Committee, or Henry Ford with all his conspiracy theories against Jews, long thought we should even make friends with Hitler. It's nice, yeah? Stand on the same side. But then, the president's wife.
Eleanor.
That's right. Moral force behind the throne. She put pressure on her husband, told him we had to do something, even if a token gesture. And so we heard rumors then the Americans had a plan to bring Jewish refugees to safety.
Thank God.
Thank God, yes. War raging to the north, over a year still until Hitler would be defeated. Displaced people everywhere, scouring the rubble for any scrap of food. Finally, one day, whispers.
Player 1 appears again as Ivo's mother, Ruth.
Ivo, they say the Americans will bring thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands to safety. Our prayers answered.
Take us where, Mama?
Who knows? Who cares? By ship to North Africa, maybe, which they have liberated, or to South America, maybe Venezuela, Brazil. We'd be safe there. To British Palestine, maybe even to the States themselves. Why not? Tata heard one man say, whole fleets of ships will be leaving from Naples in the south. Isn't it wonderful?
You can't imagine her relief, the joy, Mama.
Yes, Ivo.
I was so afraid.
I know you were. But you were a brave boy. Ivo. Like Tata.
As brave as you, Mama?
Ivo,
Yes, Mama?
tell him. Tell Michael. To the very top. Remember?
Ruth vanishes.
So in the end, you made it onto...
Projected now, an image of U.S. Liberty ship Henry Gibbons. Refugees and U.S. soldiers, some wounded, swarm the dock in Naples.
The ship. That's right, only one ship. That was it. Not even that. A U.S. Liberty ship called the Henry Gibbons. Though for me, it may as well have been a starship. Rocket to the moon. Half the ship would carry American soldiers wounded in nearby battles at Anzio and Monte Cassino, our saviors. The other half, a very, very lucky 982 refugees to safety. Mostly, though not all, Jews.
Wow, 6 million.
Like so many countless others, my parents had to apply. Impossible odds. Still, the only chances we had. They would make the final selection in Naples where the ship was waiting. Final selection. At Auschwitz, they also made a final selection on that train platform, choosing who would die. In Naples, they were choosing who would live, be granted safety, hope, maybe even a fresh start. And I've never understood why us.
Player 2 appears as a U.S. naval captain calling names from a list.
Okay, when you hear your names, Arnstein, Jaroslav, Jelka, Valdo, Abel, Auerbach, Eva, Jacob, Bader, Karl, Magdalene, Liesel,
It's okay, Dad.
Kuznetsky, Berthold, Felicitas, Rolf, Langnes, Dara, Ignatz, Bettina, Joseph, Lederer, Otto, Ruser, Mira, Ivo.
Was not okay. It was never okay. Why did we deserve to live while 6 million and so many others?
The naval captain vanishes. Evo looks over the audience. He's right there, the mass of people not making it onto the ship.
As the Henry Gibbons was weighing anchor, we stood up on that deck looking down at the faces of all those being left behind. One boy, I can see him even now, looking up at me. I told my parents I only had one wish, that somehow, that ship could carry not 1,000, but 1,000,000. Tell me something. That summer you spent bumming around Europe with your backpack, did any chance you visit Berlin?
No.
Do me a favor, if you haven't already, go one time. Have a look as you walk about. On the sidewalks outside some of the homes where they dragged Jews to their death, you'll see some brass plaques called Stolpersteine. In English, stumbling stones. Names, dates, fates, etched into those. I thought so often of those, like that boy who never made it onto the ship. Then I thought too of those, unlike you, never even born. Children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren who could have, should have had their own lives, but who never had the chance, as you have, to see so much as a glimpse of day. The shadow people. I mean, what books would have been written, what music composed, inventions, discoveries. One of them might even have found a cure for fucking cancer, and I still might be here. Sometimes walking the city, I couldn't help but imagine them on the sidewalk, just walking beside me, going about their own lives.
Dad,
All my life, do you not understand? I wrestled trying to make the most of my luck, not just for me, but for them. And I failed.
Oh, stop this right now. Just stop it.
Really believed I would help save the world when I was walking. Same as you, child of the 40s, child of the 60s. It's not so different, you and I. Fork on the left, knife on the right, but otherwise.
Are you serious? You felt inadequate because you didn't save the world? Paging Dr. Freud, stat. I remember one day, when you were in the bathroom vomiting, I went into your closet to get you a fresh shirt. I didn't see a Superman cape hanging there. I didn't see a fucking magic wand on the shelf next to your shoe horns. So what is this? Come on, you can't think that you could have done anything.
Look up there, just look. Fat still doesn't like the skinny, am I right? The tall still don't like the short. It's color, race, faith, right-handed, left-handed. Any fucking excuse to hate. And then suddenly, poof, fourth quarter, time up. What did I do? Taught some horny undergraduates the difference between Potsdam and Flotsam.
First of all, you don't get to beat yourself up like this. That's my job.
Is it really?
Secondly, now what? Suddenly you're Willie Loman? Couldn't clinch the deal? The save the world deal? What were you hoping for? Streets named after you? Marble statue? Maybe a little park somewhere, huh? Lederer Park near the river? That'd be nice. A little play area for the kids?
How dare you? It's had nothing to do with glory or vanity.
No?
Well, maybe just a touch of vanity. Thinking I would,
Roosevelt? Yeah. Churchill? Evo Lederer.
when we're young, capes or no capes, we all have superpowers, or so we think. We will move the mountain. Every young lawyer will reach the high court. Every writer wants to win a prize. Every scientist make that breakthrough. Later, we discover, most of us, they're nothing but mist, nothing but drops of rain destined to evaporate.
Drops of rain make rivers, and rivers carve mountains.
Oh, don't be so fucking poetic.
The year after my father died, I went to Krakow in Poland for a little theater conference. At the last minute, the lecture I was going to hear was canceled. I wasn't sure what to do. Someone suggested, use the day, go to Auschwitz, less than an hour away. I had always planned to do that someday, so I went. But the thing is, it was a warm day. Beautiful blue sky. I'd eaten a full breakfast. And as I walked around that hellscape, I thought to myself, this is not how I should be seeing this place. So spontaneously like this, I even felt ashamed of myself. So I decided I'll come back in winter, coldest, grayest day possible, and I did that. Didn't eat dinner the night before, no breakfast, no scarf or gloves. And I tried. I mean, really tried to feel what it was like for them. But of course, I couldn't. No escape. Future, measured not in years or months, but hours, minutes. No one there to protect you. And worse, much worse, no one you could protect. And then I realized, no matter when or how I'd see it, I would always be there by choice. Safety, warmth, a hot meal just waiting for me any moment I liked. All my life, I've had choices. Thanks to him. And to the others.
And talk to us for a minute about because I think some of the audience here is pretty accustomed to hearing us talk with writers of books and novels. What is it like for you writing dialogue and telling your story almost completely through people talking to each other in conversation?
Well, I'm also an actor. I started as an actor for many, many years. So, and I'm a method actor. So I can't say, in one way it's not hard, in another way it's absolute torture, emotionally. The intellectual part is the easy part. To frame, a sequence of thoughts that builds toward a climax. The architecture of storytelling. That's not difficult, that's a craft. And the more one practices it, the better one becomes at it. The emotional part, because there's no moment in this story where I was interested in having the actors tell what they saw or what they knew. I'm more interested in in them somehow communicating what they felt. So whether it was guilt, whether it was anger, whether it was sadness, whether it was joy, whether it was excitement, whatever. And so I do that myself. If you're looking into my kids know, Lucas, Alex, Katerina, if they peek into, my little library where I look like a crazy guy, because I'm, I'm legitimately feeling. So these lines, I cried like a baby when I wrote this business, and Daniel did such a beautiful job now. Thank you about Auschwitz, because that happened. That was really true. I went and I tried. I really wanted. I really tried to understand. But as he said, how could I? Because I was there by choice. That makes all the difference in the world. They can lock you in a prison cell, but if they give you the key, that's a very different experience. So I navigated the storytelling through the series of feelings, and you oscillate, so moments of great frustration, but real moments of real joy. I think we're going to hear from Ivo later. I saw this and I saw that, and tapping into like the child inside one. My father had that capacity, and so it's absolutely exhausting to write, and it must be exhausting to act it as well.
Scene 4. Rada, Ivo, Michael. Player 2 is Rabbi, military guard, racist. Player 1 as Ruza again, an old refugee with sheets. Ivo and Michael have just met Rada, a young acting and singing student at Juilliard, also now working as an intern for Ivo's longtime companion, the actress Kitty Carlisle Hart.
And tell me, my dear, did you always want to be a singer?
Growing up, what I really wanted was to be a veterinarian. I always loved animals, but then I also loved music. Then one night, in my mom's living room, I was just singing my heart out. An old Nina Simone song, Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free. And when I stopped, the window was open, it was summer, I heard these people out on the street clapping, yelling, calling out for me to sing another one, and that was it. Never looked back. Later I found out Nina Simone went to Juilliard, and the rest, as they say.
I don't know that song. How does it go?
I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. I wish I could break all the chains holding me. I wish I could say all the things that I should say. Say 'em loud, say 'em clear, for the whole wide world to hear.
Oh, bravo! What a lovely voice you have.
Your mom has to be proud.
She is. She'd tell you her daughter did real good. Didn't finish high school, can't spell worth a nickel, and when she talks, you know she's from the Bronx. You couldn't run down a hill of ice faster than she can talk. But from that first day, she was dead set her little girl would sound like I was setting out for a different world than the one she knew. So I had to grow up watching PBS and shows like Paddington Bear, Winnie the Pooh, Alice in Wonderland, while my friends were already watching Kojak, Purple Rain, Debbie Does Dallas.
That's a spread.
You think?
And your father?
Never knew any of that. Died when I was 8. You don't have to ask. He drove a limo. Car broke down in Queens as he was headed to the airport. He got out of it. I guess someone driving by thought the best thing to do would be to shoot him.
Fuck.
Exactly. Sometimes no other word will do, right? Like punching a wall, that word. Anyway, enough about me. Tell me something about you, Ivo. Kitty said you came to America as a young boy from Europe?
Yeah, that's right. My family fled from the Nazis, then a few miracles, those come in handy. And finally we made our way to...
And just like that, I had tried, asked, begged, still nothing. Then she asked him one time, and presto, tap open and a river ran through it. Story time.
Don't be so paranoid. It's just that there's such a remarkable compassion in this young lady. Well, that story of her father was so tragic, touching. And the way she sang.
Tell me, Evo, before you left, did the Nazis ever make your family wear those yellow stars?
They did, yes. Why?
I always figured the reason they did that was because walking past someone on the street without that sign on them, no way of knowing who was who. My dad wore his star on every inch of his body. No taking it off at the end of the day. They could even spot him on that road just driving by.
He told her about the one ship and sailing towards safety.
I tell you, I felt like a young Christopher Columbus heading to the New World. The Nina, the Pinta, and the Henry Gibbons. That was the name of our ship. 2 weeks to cross that wild sea. More food than any of us had seen in months, years. Fresh bread, oranges. We couldn't believe it. To have outrun the bullets and have made it that far. Wow! Still a little nervous, of course, not sure what was waiting for us. I still basically spoke only one word of English.
What was that?
As we were crossing the Atlantic, I kept hearing the sailors up on deck talk about those fucking refugees. I thought it was a marvelous word.
Really? That was your first English word?
One has to start somewhere. It's come in handy more than once.
Projections loom of the Statue of Liberty and 1940s Manhattan skyline from the harbor.
Pulling into New York Harbor. One of the other refugee boys looking past the Statue of Liberty spotted the Hudson River. I guess geography was not his strong suit because he shouted out, "Look, everyone, do you see it? There it is. That's the mighty Mississippi." As I told Michael, I had read Huckleberry Finn back home in Zagreb. My eyes were scanning. Now for Huck, Tom, Jim, and the others. As far as I was concerned, I had seen the Mississippi.
So you made it.
Manhattan, looming ahead of us. Possibilities. Anything. Everything just there at arm's reach. I thought it looked like Oz, only more magical. Those glass and steel towers shooting up to the sky. I asked my parents if President Roosevelt would be on the deck to greet us. Well, they said they didn't think so, that he was probably too busy running the war and all the rest of it. Still, I hoped at least there'd be a band or something.
And was there?
No. They had something very different in store for us, but at that moment it hardly mattered. We had a rabbi with us from Belgium. We all clustered around him while he spoke the Shehechianu, the Hebrew prayer of thanks.
Player 2 appears as the rabbi.
Blessed are you, Lord, our God, King of the universe, who has granted us life, sustained us, and allowed us to arrive at this time.
Amen.
Amen is right.
Rabbi vanishes.
And then what? Welcome to America?
Wouldn't that have been nice?
Go on, tell her that. By all means, tell Rada all about it.
We were taken to Hoboken, New Jersey, to be processed. Told to separate. Men, women, clothes off to be deloused in showers. It's understandable, still one moment joy, the next terror. In the concentration camps to be separated, and then so-called showers, that meant death. One woman cried out, "Please don't kill us, please, 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 we've come this far."
Player 2 appears as an armed military guard. Player 1 appears beside him as Rusa. Evo looks on as the guard rips a large cardboard tag as described around Rusa's neck.
They hung these enormous cardboard labels on strings around our necks. U.S. military, casual baggage.
Are you serious?
We weren't being let in as immigrants, so the only category left, I suppose, casual baggage. as if somehow we were things, not people.
Not the first time that's happened.
One guard spoke Italian, as did we after hiding so long in Italy. I told him we were personal guests of the president and asked him what casual baggage meant. He told me it was English for guest of the president. I believed him. I wanted to believe him anyway.
There you go, lady. Courtesy of Uncle Sam. Next!
Ruza looks towards Eva, frightened, as she and the guard vanish. Michael goes to the bookshelf to take his father's own casual baggage tag in his hand.
And the reason you told Rada all this, but would never tell me, was because...
She would understand. The struggle. Our struggle.
And I wouldn't understand struggle?
You're joking? Your idea of struggle was growing up with hamburger, french fries, and should I have a vanilla chocolate or...
No bullshit!
You and your friends trying to decide what movie to go see on a weekend. Hard as that must have seemed at the time.
Just because I might not know firsthand what it's like to be hated at birth already doesn't mean that I didn't want to understand.
Oh, poor baby. Now there's a first world problem if I ever saw one. He wants to understand what it feels like to be hated. The charmed life you've led in a golden age. End of the rainbow. Growing up after the war, boomer. Is that what they call you? It's too young for Vietnam. Listening to your Beatles, giggling about girls, little Peter Pan.
You know something?
Go on, tell Dad.
The first time I understood someone despised me for not who I was, but what I was already the day I was born? Here. Now, with you. You held it against me all my life, didn't you?
What are you talking?
That I never had to face the kind of dangers you faced as a boy, or that Rada's family faced. I didn't realize that until just now.
Told you earlier what a joy it was to see you climbing those trees, making those forts with your friends.
But it wasn't the only feeling seeing that, was it? We are who we are, what we are, when we are, and no child is born guilty. No child! Isn't that right?
God's children, one no better than the next.
Be that as it may, should have written my own damn play while I had the chance. You with your little peace signs, kumbaya. Why can't we all just get along? By the way, Dad, tomorrow's the 1st. Can I please borrow, You see, I have to write another poem, and there's a cloud that looks like a fish or some such thing, and before it blows away and I lose the inspiration, if you could just make that check out, I'd be so grateful.
That is not fair.
Isn't it? Living in a teepee, motorcycle through Mexico, a little Spanish fishing village, Brazilian strippers. Hi, Dad, this is my friend Boom Boom. Nice. Smoking, drinking, and screwing your way from one decade to the next.
And writing.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Smoking, drinking, screwing, and writing. You're a historian. At least be accurate.
I'll never forget when you finally came back from California yourself to live here in New York, 36 years old, swashbuckling your way down to the temporary employment agency. And my phone would ring. Dad, I got a job. Great. Doing? But by the time he answered, it was already over. On to the next. Selling books one week, art gallery the next, but a real job, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Nah, not for my poet. He's too sensitive. Take it from me, darling. While there's still time, there is no worse feeling in this world than to know one could have done more. Don't waste it. Beg you. 982? One ship only? 6 million.
Ego sits at the piano who again played a few bars as childhood melted peace.
Well, go on. Aren't you going to tell Rada about the camp? May as well. You're telling her everything else.
What camp is he talking about, Evo? You mean before you got on that ship, were you and your family in one of those German camps?
No,
I'm sorry to hear that.
it was after we had arrived here in America.
What?
The There's cardboard tags around our necks. They put us all on a train, took us up to Oswego, New York, where, as it turned out, we were to be interned for the next 18 months behind barbed wire on an old U.S. Army camp. Fort Ontario Emergency Refugee Shelter, as it was called, and we were not to leave it.
Like those Japanese camps out west?
No worse, no better.
A small section of chainmail wire fence appears with 3 strands of barbed wire along the top of it. At the same time, we see looming projections, archival photos of the emergency refugee shelter in Fort Ontario, Oswego, with refugees and locals on either side of the fence.
Armed military guards, damn barbed wire, rows of thin wooden barracks. It looked like a concentration camp. People screaming, weeping. For some moments, we all thought we'd been tricked. But then at the front gate, we were handed sheets, towels, and soap.
Player 1 appears as a refugee woman clutching sheets.
Sheets. I haven't seen sheets for years. If you knew some of the places where we had to sleep, in the woods, on the ground, with the animals, with the dead even. Now, sheets. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you.
Each family then given its own tiny corners. Army cots, 1 wooden chair per person, a small table. It was enough. Walls literally made of paper. You could hear everything. I was 14 by now. I tell you, at nights, that was an education. Shared toilets down the hall, common mess hall. We could cook, clean for ourselves. Above all, we were safe now, if still not free.
But barbed wire?
After settling in, many of us went back out to look at that fence and at the locals who began appearing on the other side of it. They were staring at us. We were staring back at them. One girl passed a handful of M&Ms through the wire. Thought they were pills, medicine. She said they were chocolates, that they would melt in our mouths, not in our hands. Chocolates, my God, how we gobbled those up. Others were passing cigarettes to the adults. An old man I had seen on the ship, no shoes, still with only sackcloth wrapped around his feet, he came to the fence. One local fellow, when he saw him, took off his own shoes and passed them through the barbed wire. He insisted, please, he said, I have so many shoes. We watched then as that old man sat on the ground, peeled off that sackcloth, and put them on. He was so grateful. The whole town, Oswego, so kind to us. Well, there was one man.
Player 2 appears colorful racist.
Just look at them in there. Jews are animals. That's why they keep them in a cage like this, behind wire. I'm telling you, don't get too close, or they'll bite you.
I'd learned a few more words of English by then and tried to be nice to him, but he just made fun of me. He called me Pedro.
Evil Pedro, what's the difference?
I asked him, where are all the cowboys and Indians? I was so sure America was full of both, just like in the movies. He told me so proudly how his own grandfather had helped kill the Indians. And then he said,
If you're not careful.
"Is that? How did you know?"
Some hear that all our lives, not just from the people who hate us, but from those who love us. Parents protecting children, right? Cross a red light, maybe you cross a red line. Step out of that car like my dad did. Could be the last step ever, if you're not careful. Everything you said now about the war, Evo, so hard to get one's head around it if one hasn't seen it.
Even harder if one has. Trust me. It's great for stories like this, but for otherwise, no thank you. Still, something about violence and death, it fascinates us. Yes? Nobody would pay to see Humphrey Bogart with a piece of broccoli in his mouth instead of a cigarette, drinking grapefruit juice.
I would.
Well, aside from the Buddha here.
So, at that camp, They never let you leave until after the war was over.
The grown-ups, for the most part, had to stay behind the fence. But after months going crazy, cooped up like that, we kids at last were allowed to go to school in the town. My God, what a day that was. Most of us hadn't seen a classroom in years, hiding as we've been from the Germans. Now finally, history, science, math, it's my least favorite subject, but still, languages, geography. One hears of kids not liking school. We couldn't get enough of it. I read every word I could find. We all did. Food labels, discarded magazines, anything we could, we'd read, study, practically memorize. Cereal boxes. Great. Taught me how Americans think. Words like new, free, more. And then after school, it was back behind the wire. Well, except, of course, kids being kids.
I think I see what's coming.
Digging around one afternoon, I found a hole in the fence.
I knew it.
I pleaded with my parents to let me go down to the city for a weekend. I begged them, assured them nobody would even notice I was gone. My father thought I was mad, always the careful one.
And oh, Mama?
Soul of adventure. They were planning to return us all to Europe once the war finished. That is, if our side won. And so my mother thought this could be the only chance their son might have to see a little something of America.
So off you went.
Looming projections of busy 1940s Times Square. Lights, cars, people. We hear car horns, voices. Player 2 appears as a hawker for a cheap movie house. Player 1 appears as a gum-chewing prostitute.
My parents gave me $6, strict budget. A bus to Syracuse, a train down to the city. I was sure everyone I saw was an FBI agent searching for me. Tried to keep my eyes down, but there's so much to see. I was walking through Times Square. Sailors in uniform. There's people bumping into me. Cars, signs, lights, everywhere. I'd never seen anything like it. One old guy standing outside a theater asked me,
Hey kid, you like movies?
I love movies, I told him.
Well then, come in here and see this movie called The Facts of Life. Teach you everything you want to know about a woman's body. Everything.
And did you go in?
Yeah, I just kept walking. And then there was a prostitute. She asked me if I was a sailor. I said, nah. And then she asked,
A Marine? Oh, you look like maybe you're a Marine with those muscles.
I was the skinniest kid in this or any other world. But I was old enough by then. I knew what she was asking. Still, I just kept walking. And then there was the Empire State Building.
Still the tallest building in the world back then, yeah?
That elevator went up and still up. I thought we were heading into the clouds until finally, I mean, some things you can say, some things you can't. How I felt looking out.
Hawker and prostitute vanish. Evo moves downstage to look over the audience, as if they now are the city.
It wasn't a city, New York.
No?
No, it wasn't even the world. It was a universe. I never wanted to go back to anything normal again. Not if life could be that exciting. All those people moving together, living together. It was as if that city needed every one of them, every one of us, or it wouldn't be New York. What's more, it was like looking at the future. I swear, from up there, I could almost see tomorrow.
Everyone together, sharing the ride. I like that.
The next day, already back at the camp, I told my parents all about it. I was breathless, words flying a mile a minute. I saw this, I saw that, and hot dogs are delicious. You have to try them, you'll love them. And there are horses with beautiful carriages in this big park called Central Park, and there's a lake with boats. Only I didn't have enough money to rent the boats. That didn't matter because instead I walked down this one big street. It's called Fifth Avenue. And you should have seen all the people. There's so many people in the stores. Mama, Tata, please don't let President Roosevelt send us back to Yugoslavia. I want to live here forever. I love America.
Can your mother talk that fast?
I have to say that was pretty close. And after that trip, Evo, what happened?
Weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. For the adults, it was so frightening. In Europe, families gone. Homes gone. Here in the States, knowing that most of the country didn't want us there, someone told my parents the fence was less to keep us in than to protect us against people like that fellow who had yelled at us the first day. You know, the pitchfork crowd.
And for you kids, also scary?
No, hardly. To tell the truth, it was paradise. It was absolute paradise. I had no bullets to dodge, all the food we could eat. We had the old fort to explore. We learned how to play baseball. We even started our own little scout troop. We wanted so desperately to become American. Hot dogs, popcorn, nights listening to the radio, Sinatra, the Lone Ranger, the Shadow. Whoa, the Shadow. We even had a ping pong table. Can you imagine? There's children being thrown into ovens, and we were playing ping pong.
Evo. Yeah. The fact that you did survive means one could survive, and if one could survive, means one will survive. That whole story, your story, gives us all hope.
Thank you for that. Can't tell you what that means.
And so, in the end,
Finally, on the news, everything changed. I mean, everything. Auschwitz liberated. Reports of what they found there. President Roosevelt dead. The war over, and then at last, December 22nd, 1945, the snow was piled so high, stars over the lake. President Truman came on the radio to say we would be allowed to stay after all. No more casual baggage, but real people now. Real people.
Rada vanishes.
Where'd she go?
Just you and me now, Dad.
I see. It's that season again, is it? Listen, do you hear it?
I don't hear anything, no.
Eva goes to the window and looks out. It's the blue hour now. Projected. Old black and white film of Europeans at the beach in the 1930s.
Oh, don't you? I can even smell it. It's like rain on a hot pavement. Those summers at the seaside, Opatya. At the edge of the beach, there was this man. He had squinting eyes, nice smile. He sold ice cream. I'd sit on the rocks, watching the water, one wave after the other. People laughing. My parents holding hands, my sister with her friends. They're still there. All of them. Anka, the others, they're still there. They're waiting. You'll permit me just one last thought? Please. Every one of us from that ship tried to give something back to this country that had saved us.
I know you did.
And now, it's over to you, darling. It's your turn. You'll get it right. I'm sure of it. Your generation, that is. And the next. Make love, not war, huh? Let's do this again someday, shall we? Sure.
Eva exits. Michael, left alone, takes an orange and knife from the fruit bowl. He sits and begins to carve the orange into a rose as the camera person zooms close on it. End of play. Thank you very, very much to the wonderful cast and to Michael for the wonderful play. We have just a couple of minutes left, and we can take one or two questions from the audience, which is something that's actually very, very important to us. So if we could have just a little bit of light in the audience. Do we have any questions? Sorry, not, yeah. Please. And we'll have a microphone coming your way.
Oh my goodness. Hello? Okay, a mic. I'm just curious because the story is so beautiful for what you didn't say and for what that allowed us to kind of understand. And so one scene that I was really curious about was the scene where the German soldier is coming in and he says he's going to be staying at the house. And just nothing is said, but it was so heartbreaking to watch that scene. And I'm wondering what you can say about that, because that was such an artful and beautiful choice to kind of leave it to our imagination and to see the actors, the way that they reacted, that told us so much more than you could have ever explained. So I don't know, can you say a little bit more about that in terms of your writing process?
Sure, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, there was an absolutely terrifying moment, and based on a true story. So the absolute powerlessness that one feels in a situation where somebody has been given absolute control over you. You know, any of us here would absolutely not stand for it for a second, because we're accustomed to having our human rights and our dignity, and we take that as a given. And so this was a moment in time, many moments in many places, where one group of people, you know, have been denied even that control over their own bodies. So I'm happy is not the word. I'm pleased that moved you, because it was this moment of absolute powerlessness, and I didn't think it was necessary. I mean, there's double entendre when he says, I like my tea very hot with honey. You know, it's just so sinister. And he's enjoying it. He's enjoying it. You know, I hope that will not be inconvenient. You know, you want to do something and you can't. So if that frustration is shared in an audience, I'm very I'm grateful. I'm sorry to, have to bring that part of the story, but that was the violence done to so many.
Thanks very much for your question. I think we have time for one more. Does anyone else have another question for Michael about the play or the process?
Hi. Let me see if I can actually structure a complete question here, because it's kind of a complex. So the play is kind of about your point of view, I guess, and I don't want to take out a spoiler or anything. So I just kind of want to understand whether or not your dad ever got to see your point of view or your struggle, as it is kind of like the generation that survived kind of put the blame or very large burden on your generation, whereas you are essentially the survivors of the people that died in the Holocaust, and it sort of gave you an obligation for life, right?
Yeah, it came. We were talking earlier in rehearsal. There came a moment. It went full circle, because as my father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and it meant that his diagnosis, he had ungefähr 1 year, and so in that year, I was eager to say everything I had never said, ask every question I could. He was eager. We were still trying to convince the other of our points of view. And there's a line that I wrote where I think it's Ivo says, who's just admitted that when he was young, he too had been an idealist. He had gone into diplomatic history because he had wanted to fix the world, to make the world better. And so the circle closes. Child of the 40s, who had seen war and was an advocate for peace. Child of the 60s, advocate for peace in our way, different aesthetic. He says, fork on the left, knife on the right, but otherwise, youth is youth, idealism is idealism. And the real exchange on which that's based is in my dad's living room when I was still trying to get him to see my way. And I said to him, look, you have to admit, please, we were a moral generation. Make love, not war, treat the earth gently, recycle stuff. So for whatever aesthetic qualms he had with me and us, he at that moment he saw it, and he said, yes, you're right. Because it is. If you listen to Joan Baez or David Crosby, who just left us, the advocates of my generation, they were a little older than I am, it was at its core a moral message. And he and I, came to understand that the other one wanted that as sincerely as the other. It was absolutely a beautiful moment. And he said to me, one of the last things he said to me was, I'll try not to cry as I say it, over to you, sweetheart. So if there is a passing, it happened generation before me. The day will come that I will pass to a next generation, that we all will. And that also fascinates me, how, the cause continues. So that was behind that. Can I since if that was the last question, then I'll just say one thing that I haven't said to this audience. The character of Rada is very, very important to me, because I want, while I approached this, foremost thinking about the Holocaust and that chapter, it is a bigger story than this story. It is not ultimately a question of Jews in the 30s or 40s. Rada is there as a beautiful way for me as the playwright, of saying these are a set of problems, terrors, that have been faced by many in many places. And so, you just fill in the slot. And the reason that Ivo and Rada form this easy bond is because they each understands something of what the other has been through more easily than Michael. I got into trouble as a kid again and again and again, and it was always the same thing. Oh, he's a good boy. There's a lot of potential, and we'll give him another chance, and we'll give him another chance, and another and another, and that is not the truth for too many people. So I didn't want this to be just, a story about one group of people. It's a sort of Romeo and Juliet, the Montagues and the Capulets. This group doesn't like that group, and that group doesn't like that. So it could be, Israelis, Palestinians, blacks, whites, Jews, Germans. It's the same story, and I hope that I get that across through the device of this story.
Well, thank you very, very much to all of you for coming and spending your Monday evening with us. Thank you once again to this wonderful cast. And thank you, Michael, for sharing your play with us this evening.
Thank you.